What is it you want people to know about timelines and what you want people to get from it?
The work that I've done with Einstein and Conflict Revolution, which is also a tribute not just to the years of channeling, but the years of research that I and my associates have put in to actually our living conflicts, is it really brought us back to the root, which is first the conflict is resolved here in me before I go into the world of the arena where it's playing out.
Yeah.
So that's the root of our work. And as you do that work, and maybe you do come upon timelines that are bleeding through, like you said, it's sometimes it's just this overwhelming emotion that comes flowing through you with, you could swear you're experiencing something that isn't of this moment that you're sitting in.
This is the Grief Talk Podcast with Vaughn Solis, helping you heal after loss and life's hardest hits. Today's guest is Barbara With. Barbara is an international peace activist, award-winning author, composer and performer, and workshop facilitator. She has authored 6 books based on her research as a psychic channel that include Imagining Einstein, Party of 12, The Afterlife Interviews, and Einstein AL, Manifestation, Conflict Revolution, and the New Operating System. Barbara is the co-founder of Conflict Revolution, based on the channeling of Albert Einstein as a pathway to global peace, and is currently on a world peace tour, seeking the participation of the willing to take part in a worldwide, nonviolent action to end the age of war, using Conflict Revolution as a pathway to global peace.
Hello, Barbara. I'm so excited to do this part 2 with you. My guest again, audience, is Barbara With. I think sometimes jokingly or lovingly or teasingly or whatever referred to as Mrs. Einstein. She is an Einstein channel. Barb, say hi to the audience and then we're going to get into it.
Hi, everybody. And it's so good to see you again, Vaughn. I'm so excited for this conversation. I know it's going to be good.
It's going to be amazing. So, audience, just to give you a little context, Barbara, you did come on my show October 1st, 2024. That began the start of a relationship that we've had. It's there. Sometimes we meet like this. Sometimes we don't. I did attend several peace, like you're all about conflict revolution. So bringing peace to the world. We did a number together with other people on Zoom when I was overseas. And I really enjoyed that, doing your bit and channeling the party. We're not here today, audience, to talk all about what Barbara does in Conflict Revolution and channeling Einstein, but you can listen to her episode that we did together that I'm referring to kind of as part 1. I'll put the link in the show notes for you. And certainly, Barbara, your website where you have oodles of information. So if people want to learn more about the Einstein piece of this and where we come from and what we really are and where we go and all that, I actually wrote it down so I could say it eloquently, that our first time together, we focused on the conflict revolution and the intersection of science, spirituality, and consciousness, and your work over decades channeling Einstein, which is amazing. And compassion is the 5th fundamental force. It is an episode that anyone interested in this, please go and see it on the link. And also you have a page, your Podcast Anyway page, right? Dedicated to all the podcast episodes you do with other folks too. And so you can be found, and
there's no lack. There's no lack of information.
Right. And audience, your consciousness can be raised. So today, Barbara, you can explain how long you've been actually interested in timeline healing. We're going to be covering timeline healing, what it is. It's a topic that isn't really talked about much, if I'm correct, Barbara, right? It's not talked about a lot.
Not in a lot of circles. There's certainly some circles that have these conversations, but
yeah. And it's time to bring it to the Grief Talk podcast. We're going to be talking about afterlife communication. Everybody knows what afterlife is. Everybody knows what communication is. We're talking here today about actual proof of it. I'm living it and have been living it for many months now, many months now, with my daughter on the other side calling me through my Apple AirTag. And for those who don't believe, I'm not here to try and make you believe, we are going to try and uncover, well, we're not going to try, we're going to uncover some of the things Barbara knows from researchers who are actually doing research in this area. If I'm correct, Barbara, at your Barcelona symposium you went to last July. So work is being done in this area from scientists who are trying to make that connection, and how we can trust that it really is communication across the veil. I'll just put it that way. And then I'm going to explain how my experience started and continues, giving me, I should say, giving my daughter a direct link to me whenever she wants to let me know, or I need to know that she's right here, right here, right here beside me, right here in my vibration. So we're going to be talking all about that. What is that when they live in our vibration, Barbara? So people can understand that. And that coincides a little bit with the timeline of living more than one life at a time. And so, it sound good to you, Barbara?
Right up my alley. I've got a lot to say.
I know. Let's go. All right. So why don't you start, Barbara? If you want to jump in, I thought that we could sort of start with giving the audience an understanding of what timeline healing is, and if it's so interconnected, this is my actual question, with living more than one life at a time, or like, can timeline healing be done if people are not aware that they're living multiple lives, or maybe some people aren't? Like, I don't know. I'm going to ask that question and let you take it away.
I think that we're all on our way to becoming aware of what we really are, which is a very multifaceted, dimensional being, as opposed to what we grew up thinking we were just this, little piece. So we have these other lives that are being lived in different DNA space-time bodies. And the reason I was called to it was because I went through my own timeline healing with a past life, and it took several years over time to understand it, to figure it out what was going on. And I had a jump start because I was the psychic anyway. So if you're not aware, probably if I was going through what I went through and wasn't aware that it was a timeline healing, I would have been deemed having a psychosis.
Oh, really?
Sure. Because it was like there was somebody inside me. It was like I was channeling this personality, and there was all of these things happening around that personality. And I decided to treat her like she was a dead person. Like, it wasn't my timeline. It was just another person who had passed on who was looking for my help. So I could put her outside of me and then because otherwise it's crazy making. You have emotions that come up that have nothing to do with what's going on in your environment. You might be sitting somewhere and suddenly there's this huge, massive amount of emotion that comes surging through that's not triggered by anything. It doesn't make any sense in this world, but here it's very real. And so it's quite maddening, I think, if you don't know. It was certainly maddening enough when I did know.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to explain to somebody who may not be open to the idea that we have these other lives that we're living. And it's what I like about my Einstein work, is that it gives you a map to be able to see how this operating system works. And then we can show you how, okay, here's one lens, Barbara and the DNA space, and in the center of the planet, which is the source where everything starts. Then there's another, it's 900 AD in Ireland and a different DNA space-time body. And they're interconnected with their energy flow. I can't, with my hands, don't you do a good job.
Yeah.
But once you see it, and then you understand how it can be, and how it is that when I took the time to figure out what this past life was wanting and how to heal it, trying to heal.
Yes.
And did. Now, it took me a long time,
Yeah.
but I did it. Now, I understand how that also affects that timeline
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
potential of what that DNA space-time body was experiencing in a healed energy flow. Because
Yeah.
the short story is that this was a past life where I had been married. I've been a child queen in Ireland, married to this king,
Mhm.
and he went off and got captured by the Vikings
Mhm.
and tortured and killed. And here she was, whatever, 13 years old, in charge,
Wow.
very much a psychic. She just, she was obsessed with him, and she could figure. And when he died from the torture, she ended up taking on that torture and throwing herself over the cliff. And I mean, it was just
Wow.
drama. And so when I got it all sorted out,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, now I understand how maybe she's experienced it. Maybe he left a day later and he didn't get captured by the Vikings, and she lived on to be a grandmother,
Yeah. Here's a question. Have you ever been like afraid of heights or cliffs or anything like that?
Absolutely afraid of heights.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I wanted to say a couple things. So I'm going to probably interject as I have questions here. And I'm going to do it on behalf of the audience who watching this might want to ask the same thing. So when you were talking about 900 AD, and here we are in, it doesn't matter, 2026 AD, but whenever you went through this, whatever present time period, and then you imagine the energy. So energy is always energy. It never, it can maybe change shape, but it doesn't end. I don't think you can ever like kill energy, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Terrible explanation, but you can't, it's always alive. So here's my question. When we heal something from the past, so your 900 AD healing, and you all of a sudden, through your own journey of however long it took you to understand this was the story, the 13-year-old girl married to the king, that's the story, the incarnation. We'll call it our story today in present incarnation, the story we're living today. So as that gets healed, and you were talking and you said, and you pointed a little bit at, we're thinking of a circle here, folks, in 900 AD, somewhere in, this vicinity, and the 25, 26 present over here when the healing takes place. The minute this changes, doesn't it have to the minute the past gets healed, doesn't it automatically change the trajectory of the course of who we are in the future, the present and the future?
Yes, absolutely has to.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like when you watch movies and they jump through time. And we can watch a movie and they're jumping back from the past to the present to the future, and everything's different basically by one timeline getting changed in either the present or the past. Now, I don't know if changing the present timeline changes the past as much as it would the future, but probably is my guess, because the energy's changed, right?
Well, and it would depend on this term past. Like,
okay, 900 AD, what would you call it then if not the past?
Well, because they're happening concurrently.
So, yeah.
It's like the Earth is a sphere.
Okay.
And your lens is on, mine is in Madison, Wisconsin today.
Yeah.
Hers is over here in Ireland in 900 AD. And they intersect in the center.
In the center. Yeah.
So I would think that as I was healing the present, which is me, using this energy too.
Yes.
Because in conflict revolution, it doesn't matter if the emotion is from the other life or from somebody in the room or from my past, or it doesn't matter where it's from.
Yeah.
If the emotion is in your body, we just deal with it the same way for that life and for, the empaths and everything. So
Got it.
when I was in the present, healing that emotion from that life, it healed that. And that's what I mean. If it was the past, because it was a timeline, but I think it's more compelling to think about it as the concurrent, in that, and let's get practical, okay? So what it did for me personally, that I did all that work and got through it and figured it out and changed my life, changed the past life, is that now in life, I have a much different life than I would have had I not done all that work.
Yeah, because you would have been driven, like most of us, by the trauma and the grief and the fear and everything that's
Probably cancer or
that's
sickness.
that's stuck in that timeline. Let's call it a timeline. I don't know, people do it, for me, I might think of it as timeline 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to talk more about this, but I'll jump in here and say when I had my reading with you in October of 2024, it made clear to me I'm living very, very prominently. So let's talk about this too. There can be timelines that are really, really pressing on the incarnation that are more, I don't know what word to use, but more pressing to deal with some of the pain. And mine was one from India, one from Mongolia, both to do with losing a child. Here I am in this timeline, modern world, losing a child. And so just the tip of the iceberg sharing here in my reading. So a lot of the bereavement and the grief and the trauma, I'm living 3 timelines of it because it never got healed in those timelines, how it was presented to me. So now the effort was there to heal it for sure in the Mongolia one. The India one, I kill myself. I drown in the ocean. My daughter's murdered. And by the way, an important piece here, Barbara, is to say it's the same, we'll call us souls experiencing this. So my daughter in this life was my daughter in those lives. And so that, it in my experience, so I'm repeating it, audience, but I'm desperately, consciously trying to learn certain lessons in this life. And when I had, and listen, doing a decent job, but it was the reading with you, Barbara, channeling the party, that helped me understand it's not just this timeline I'm trying to heal, it's those 2 timelines too. And specifically, most prominently, that I kind of died and left those lessons unlearned or only partially learned. So I'm trying to phrase it so audience can think of it that way, that if there's influences we're having. And so let's go back to that for a minute. So you throw yourself off a cliff as the 13-year-old bride. This lifetime, you're afraid of heights, possibly cliffs. I'm terrified of, I've put myself in deep ocean, trying to a few times snorkel, swim with dolphins. And I'm so terrified. Immediately, I get the sense I'm drowning. I have to get out within a minute, and I'm panicking literally. And so I had that reading with you, and now I understand why. Oh, well, I sort of feel the timeline, Barbara. So I want you to explain what it feels like in terms of, is it vibration? Like for me, it's like I've got myself surrounded by an energy, a vibration, that is so close to me. You know what I'm saying? Like we can't be separate from it. So can you kind of explain to the audience what's happening energetically, or how we could think of it when we are resonating or living literally alongside one or more other timelines? How could we think of it?
Well, I don't mean to go back to psychology, but it is like having multiple personality.
Really?
You have probably in the need to heal whatever's coming up, right?
Mhm.
Why did those 2 particular lives of yours come up to be faced, to heal? Who knows? It's a mystery. But it feels like there's another personality that has a strong emotion. It's similar to what you have, but it's thicker and it's different because it is.
Mhm.
The Life in Mongolia had its own, it had the same theme and the same players,
Mhm.
right? You and your
Mhm.
daughter were reincarnated there,
Yeah.
but it also had a whole bunch of different experiences in the time that it was. I mean,
For
who
sure.
knows, just on survival mode, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
We can think about the issue that it's bringing, but it's also bringing a whole lifetime of experience that's
Mm.
somehow taxing your pineal gland and your brain
Mhm.
as to, and then there's the thoughts.
Yeah.
So where are they coming from? You don't know, but when you start to understand, okay, here's the timeline.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. lost the child. Okay, lost the child. And then you can start to understand, and this is what I did, and I maybe part of what you did was the psychology of that life. Like, what was it in that life, the dynamic of the healing that needed to take place in Mongolia? How do you heal from suicide? That was the weird question I had to ask myself. Like, how do you heal from suicide?
Yeah.
But also whatever that living part, right? And so it was like that 13-year-old queen was alive in me and wanted to have, control my body to do certain things with the king, because part of it was the king had reincarnated in this life in a person that I knew.
Well, of
So
course, there was.
yes, in a man. And that whole dynamic was, and so I had to take her outside, and because I never had children, I had to go to my parent friends and say, how do you tell the difference in like a 12 or 13-year-old when they're really traumatized and in pain, or when they're just being, and that, of course, then I'm thinking to myself about this life. Oh, how was I was a big tantrum queen, when I was growing up. So there was, you start to see the threads
Of behavior. Yeah. Personality or behaviors or something, right? Yeah. Interesting.
It's really, and I think I have a friend in Norway she's going with her getting her psychiatric degree in psychiatry. And we hope to put some of this work together in that field, because it's maddening.
Yeah, that's something that'd be so interesting, is psychosis, and is it actually something else really happening? But yeah. Okay, so I think it's so interesting. I do want to just clarify one thing. When I had my reading with you, Barbara, the reading did give me the answers as to why those two specific timelines were prominent in this specific timeline, my current one, that I'm aware of, consciously living. Well, I'm aware of the others too, but you know what I mean, consciously living in this incarnation. So you do get answers from your reading. I did get them. And so they have helped me shape the efforts I've been trying to make from those timelines, and help me understand that, well, they weren't completed. Part of the work was completed, and I got to see with greater clarity what I'm here to try to do in this incarnation. So I just want to let and the audience know, you may well get the reasons why those timelines are showing up. And you don't, obviously, in your capacity as Barbara, may not remember all of that, nor should you be. You do your readings and your channeling, which you're going to talk about how those readings work anyway in a bit. But so I'm just saying, it clarified what I'm here to do. Whereas before that reading, I was a little bit scattered. I had a broad kind of awareness of what I was trying to do, but now the pieces of those timelines and the attempts before was kind of like, okay, you've been here before. All right. So it just refined it. And that's where you can, listen back to a reading, have a follow-up reading to see, how am I doing? How am I doing? When you get lost or anything like that. But more importantly, I think it opens the door to, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit, that whole, people call it afterworld vibration, but we're going to be talking about this. And this is why it's so important. Is so the minute you believe in timelines, incarnations, but you're existing at the same line with this energy, you can't not believe that consciousness exists. So that's why I'm just putting that plug in right now. Everything exists in some form, in energy and emotion, which is also energy. It exists. One thing I wanted to kind of ask you. So when people think about, they might be listening, watching this and go, yeah, well, this keeps coming up for me. So you've got the patterns, you've got the personality, you've got the behaviors, you've got a bunch of stuff that you maybe can't explain, or it's, really more prominent than other people. Like you might think you're grieving way worse than you should be. Like, I don't know, whatever it is for you, that's a question. And you want some answers, or fears. Fears is a good one, right? And a lot of people do past life, regression to try and fix fears and things like that. So well, this is along the lines of that, understanding, oh, what you were in another life. That can be fun and interesting to a point. It's completely changes the game when you understand you're living it right now. Okay. So, in that vein, understanding timeline healing is about the awareness of healing another timeline we're currently existing at the same time as 2026. What is it you want people to know about recognizing timeline and timelines, why you're interested in it, and what you want people to get from it?
The work that I've done with Einstein and Conflict Revolution, which is also a tribute not just to the years of channeling, but the years of research that I and my associates have put in to actually our living conflicts, is it really brought us back to the root, which is first, the conflict is resolved here in me, first and foremost, before I go into the world of the arena where it's playing out.
Yeah.
So that's the root of our work. And as you do that work, that rudimentally, and maybe you do come upon timelines that are bleeding through, like you said, it's sometimes it's just this overwhelming emotion that comes flowing through you with, you could swear you're experiencing something that isn't of this moment that you're sitting in.
Yes. Yeah.
And people maybe don't have that kind of cognition in the beginning because you're just starting to wake up to this multifaceted person. And, this is why it's psychic, because we're dealing with the psyche. We're dealing with a psychological, energetic part of you that isn't easy to see and understand. So if you do and as I'd said, if you do find yourself in this condition, chances are there's a lot of conflict in your life. There was for me. I mean, it didn't mean that the good wasn't also happening.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But it was what was driving me deeper in to get to the root.
Yeah.
Because I knew that once I used all this work from Einstein and the angels and the psychic sorority to get to the root, then there would be a different kind of turning point that would take place. That wouldn't be like every other time where I tried to figure it out and, got a little more, but still the patterns, how do you undo these patterns? Now there's patterns from another life and then patterns from another life. And how do you undo all that?
Yeah.
But when you get there and you start to work it in that way and bring it in, it opens to a different avenue of manifestation.
Yes. Yeah.
In your life. But I don't, it's very hard to systematically describe like a process someone would go through specifically
Yeah.
to heal a timeline.
Right.
And like your experience, it was just, you had it, you had a handle, but there was all this. And now that you've done it, the focus and the clarity is able to come through you.
Yeah. You said something really important though, and I think this is probably what I would pick up for someone who's brand new to this is the personal conflict. And for me, it was a conflict. So you're absolutely right. I love how you said that. It starts with the personal conflict and it has to be resolved within you before you can take it to the outer arena, because there will always be. So for me, it felt like, a conflict within myself. I just, and a lack of direction. And guessing, like, am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to, like, why am I here? Like I didn't really question. I had the piece of, why, why my daughter took her life, and it was a suicide in 2005. So I had that piece from basically very early on. I knew it was our contract, but I had no idea about the timeline. The other lives. Okay. And actually that was so comforting for me to learn we had been down this road before. It was really comforting. And we may have been down it 10 times. Your reading just brought out those two timelines that were the most important. Now, So I think for the audience, I would suggest if you are feeling absolute conflict, inner conflict about something, that might be a nudge that you're ready to learn a little bit more about what's going on. And with great respect to past life regression, and I've done enough of it, not really seeking it out, but but I've done it sometimes. I did it with James von Prague, for example. I did a mediumship with James, 100 of us in 2015, and he took us through beautiful, I think it was 5 lives or something, but there was a different intent. It was to understand the death point. It was really super cool. He took us right to the transition part. It's so cool. And how did you transition? It was a really, really interesting experience. But for a lot of people, they might go to past life regression just to go, oh, I was at this in life and I was at that in life. But you don't, maybe some of it goes farther, like the work you're doing in timeline healing, but I wasn't aware of timeline healing really until I met you. So I don't know how many people are doing it. And you were saying before, it is talked about in some circles, but I'm not sure it's talked about a lot yet. Is it?
I don't think so because I personally have not found anyone who can tell you truly how to do it. I think conflict revolution, of course, I think it's the answer to everything. But like I said before, if you're going to heal, if we're teaching you a way to process emotion as a way to put a new operating system in that's going to process conflict regeneratively and healthily and,
Yeah.
it's self-lovingly because there's always going to be conflict.
Yeah.
But as we do that, it doesn't matter if the emotion is from that timeline. In fact,
Exactly.
I think what happens and what you're sort of attesting to is that when the emotion comes up that you think was maybe about your daughter,
Yeah.
with the awareness, you're able to go, oh, well, now I can process the emotion from Mongolia too. You take that deep breath.
Yes.
And so now you're connecting the intellect as well, not just the emotion of the lives, but you're changing the intellect of what they're thinking when they're going through their own trauma as you sort of mind meld, I guess. Sounds fantastical, but
It is like that though. And you're right, because that's exactly what happens is I can be aware. Those moments are far, far less for me, but they do occur. There still are 20, almost 21 years on. There still are painful moments. But I would say without the awareness of all of this, Barbara, any kind of bereavement, loss can give people a life sentence of pain and suffering. So for me, I never wanted it to be like that. And so for those of us that do work, and I'm, did work, and still work with angels, since 2006. So they're just a daily part of my life. So a lot of my healing does come through working with angels too. But sometimes as a nod, you need another person with another type of experience, such as when I had a reading with you. But I did want to say that the reading also for me really clarified. You might be in these moments healing something from exactly what you said, the Mongolia mother or the India mother. And then I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. I get to do that, you know? And
you think?
I think yes, I 100%. And you know what was so cool? I had that reading with you in October 2024. And when we were in Singapore, and it was December 25th, and at a hotel, and meeting my son and my niece, and we met at brunch, and it was kind of a surprise for my niece. She wasn't quite sure when we were going to show up. Anyway, I was in line to get some food, and this gorgeous little Indian girl from India came up beside me, and she looked up at me. She was about 10, and she looked up at me, and she said, "I think I know you." Something like that. Anyway, we met 2 more times at the brunch table. But, I looked at her, and so this is a piece I wanna talk about next, is she was a material physical manifestation of somebody probably from that Indian life, affirming for me I could trust what the party said, it wasn't like, because you can have a reading and go away, and Barb, you record your readings like a lot of people do, and I listen to it. And so you can go away and go, no, that can't be right. Or is that right? Well, she was my manifestation. We were old friends. And even though she was 10, it's like I could have scooped her up and, I don't know, taken her home with me. Anyway, it turned out she
Wow.
was sitting with her family at a table across from us, and I think she told her mom, because her mom kind of gave me a little, smile that just knew how the connection between her daughter and me, and I couldn't have explained it. I could not have explained it. And as I'm sitting here talking to you, it's very possible. I'm guessing it's very possible she was part of a timeline of my daughter, you know, from, you get what I'm saying? Even though my daughter is gone physically, that little girl could have been part of my daughter's timeline that she's living. You get what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm explaining it right. That's the first time I've said that. Because what else would it be? I mean, we knew each other, and there was like this connection that was so strong. We do have them throughout our life. And I've been blessed to have angel visits in physical form twice. So I've had them. And that's not a conversation for today. So it's not unusual for me to be given signs when I'm on the track to something, that an affirmation, like when I connected with certain Buddhist philosophy I was here to learn in Sedona. When I left and we left Phoenix, I ended up quite annoyingly sitting next to two monks, that had the, red, robes on, and they looked like Tibetan monks. But it was confirming for me, oh, you can't get any closer than you're sitting next to two monks, which I've never done in an airport in my life before. And there was no space, you see, and I was sitting on the floor. And so one called me over, and there was room on the bench. And I didn't recognize that I wasn't staring, so I didn't even know they were monks. So I pick up my gear. I was waiting for my husband, who had gone off somewhere. And I popped over on the bench, and you can imagine my shock when I see there's these two Tibetan monks sitting there.
I bet.
And so it was just like we had just visited a stupa in Sedona, and I had had an awakening of sorts. And that's all to do with suffering is an illusion, a Buddhism. Suffering is an illusion. So that was my big thing before I met you, and understanding the other piece. So these manifestations, people do come to us in physical form. If we recognize them or not, they're going to be there. That's what I'm going to suggest. What do you think about that, Barbara?
Well, and I was thinking about her in a number of ways. One is, of course, it was the synchronicity that naturally occurs when you open in this way and you resolve the conflicts. Things start to change. The magic starts to come back. The truth of who we really are starts to play out. And synchronicity is a natural part of our communication with the physical world. You just, even, like the little people in the way back and during 900 AD in Ireland, there was communication, and there is between all of because this is our creation. We're co-creating the world around us.
Yeah.
And you would do that. I do that. I have all those synchronicities all the time now on a regular basis. And it's not like I look for them, but I just, as I sit back more and just in every day, just stay in my present moment and keep feeling and breathing and experiencing it. Life becomes that way on a regular basis. So yeah, but I also wondered if too, she was a vessel.
Yes, true. Yeah, a vessel for
Your daughter.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And as you're saying that, I'm getting chills. Yes, that was it. Yeah. 3 times. And for me, 3 is always, I learned when I was studying to become angel healing practitioner. I studied under Doreen Virtue way back when Doreen was
Still Doreen.
Still Doreen. And again, respect to Doreen and her path. And I don't know. Anyway, 3 for me is always sort of like certainty. Yeah, if you need it, it's 333. Anyway, so you're right. She was a vessel. Yes, it could have been my daughter just saying hi to me through her. 100%. I have had my daughter. My daughter actually did come to me. Again, we're not here to talk about this, but not maybe 2 years after she died. No, not 2. 6 years. And you're going to love this story. I had lost touch with her best friend. My daughter was half West Indian and her best friend was Pakistani. But very Americanized. So those two met in international school. We lived in Pakistan for a while and they met. And anyway, they carried on their relationship. So my daughter dies in 2005. And about 2010 or so, 2009, now I've lost all contact with her best friend because we had been, at that time, we have email and, whatever, and it completely went silent. So anyway, fast forward, I was doing a book signing in 2012. It was either 2011 or 2012. And these 2 girls, at the age that Janaea and her friend met, appeared before my book signing table. And I was in a store equivalent to your Barnes & Noble. My husband was off in the back doing some other stuff. And I'm sitting there with this very, very intense, my Divine Healing book, right? Just not a book for kids. And they appear before my table and they stand there. And it was the most awkward. If you've been, and I'm going to guarantee you have had otherworldly experiences in physical form. Am I right, Barbara?
Yeah.
And it's a very strange energy. It's almost like you're in a bubble when it's happening, but you may not recognize it. But then you kind of go back and go, God, that felt weird. Like that's how it's been for me. And anyway, these two young ladies, one was sort of representing the West Indian, so a half black kind of girl, and the other one was Indian or Pakistani. I don't know, but of that, race. And these 2 girls are standing there and looking to make conversation with me. So I'm having this very superficial conversation with them. And then they both pick up my book and go, "We think our mums would really love your book." They kind of said it like that. And I am, by this point, like it's 10 minutes in and like, where do you go to school? What do you like to do? Are you girls' best friend? Do you hang out? Like that kind of stuff, right? And I'm like wishing my husband would get back, because I'm getting really uncomfortable now. Really, really, really uncomfortable. Okay. So finally I say to them, are your mums here? Like, because like what kids hang out in a bookstore, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't really say anything. I can't remember what they said at that point, but anyway, I kind of encouraged them to go because I was so uncomfortable at this point, Barbara. Well, do you know what? I said to my husband at dinner that night, I said, you know what? I bet you, and I won't say the name, but so-and-so has died. I feel it in my bone that Janaea's best friend has died. And sure enough, 2 years later, we found out she had died just not too long before that visit, about a year before that visit. And she died from a tumor. She died from a brain tumor. Mm-hmm. And that's why she had stopped contact. So those 2 girls came in physical form to visit me, but it's kind of like the AirTag thing. It was so overwhelming. So when these visits happen, an audience, if you've ever had something like this and just go, what just happened? For me, they have come in the strangest of ways when angels have manifested physically, but they've needed to reassure me or do something. It has been a significant reason that they've made their presence known through a physical form. Do you want to talk about any experience you've had that way?
Well, I haven't had so much personal like that.
Okay.
But the situation that came to mind to me was my wedding. Okay, I got married on an island in northern Wisconsin, a 3-day wedding weekend in a big mansion.
Nice.
And on the first 2 nights, there were actually all 3 nights,
Yeah.
there was a reporting of a sighting of a man in 3 in the morning, but, it was a wedding weekend, so
Yeah.
but he was super tall, and he was all dressed up in a suit, and he had this big shock of gray hair, and he was smoking. So, first night, my sister; second night, she saw him again. Third night, my future former brother-in-law, um, I saw him
Yeah.
going out of the thing,
Yeah.
and we were like, "Wow, ghost sighting," or, something. And so that next Monday, it's all over, and my husband and I drive to Duluth, and we get a random room,
Yeah.
and, I feel very much like somebody's following me.
Okay.
And, because and, for your listeners, like I said, it's a little crazy making. So, yeah, you have to just kind of believe it and not believe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I said, I was going up the stairs in this bed and breakfast, and I stopped and I said, if you want me to, like, deliver a message, you're gonna have to be a little more clear with me.
Yeah.
And so that night, I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was this kind of swirling ball of light
Yeah.
in the corner of my bedroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said the same thing. I said, that's fine, but if you need me to do something, you're gonna have to be more clear.
Yeah.
And that morning we woke up, the door to our room opened and slammed shut.
Wow.
And it was locked.
Yeah.
And thank God my skeptical husband was with us.
Yeah.
Me.
He saw it. He saw it.
Yeah. And so we went downstairs, and the only place left for breakfast was with another couple. And it turns out they got married the same night we did, only in Minneapolis. And as she was talking, suddenly appears this guy with the shock of hair and the smoking the cigarette and the suit. And I didn't I didn't know what to say. Like, oh, I talk to dead people, and your dad, it's like, so I started asking questions like, oh, she was talking about, oh, I wish my dad would have been there. And I said, was he tall? Oh yeah, he was 6'6". We talk.
Yeah.
And then I'd say, did he have gray hair? Oh yes, he had this beautiful thing of gray. Talk.
Yeah.
And I said, did he smoke? He died of lung cancer.
Wow.
And then I felt I could say, he's here. And her reaction, which is not what I thought was going to be, what do you mean? Who are,
Yeah.
It's like, I knew it. I can't wait to tell my sisters. And then we proceeded to communicate.
Yeah.
And he said, I just imagined he was saying the things. And I say, well, he said you were coming out of the thing, and there was this long hallway, and something happened here where you fell back. And then she's like, oh my God, we left the priest's office, and we were walking down the thing, and somebody stepped on my veil. And
Oh, wow.
And I felt like my dad was there at that moment, And so for me, because I've had this empirical experience that hasn't been subjective,
Yeah.
like yours was very subjective. It's hard to, especially in your situation where you want to, this is a soul connection with your daughter and the whole,
It's
but to be able to see it outside and then see somebody like confirm in that way that to be confirmed.
Yeah.
Helps me go, of course. I don't know how it works.
No, I know.
I don't know where the 2 girls came from.
Yeah.
I don't know how the Indian girl at the hotel knew to get up to go say that to you.
Yeah.
But that's the beautiful mystery. That when you accept that it's a mystery, and then you can live in the magic of it.
Yeah.
That's what starts to make life so.
Yeah. And these
rich.
stories, and by the way, for the record, I don't want to see quote unquote dead bodies. I absolutely do not want to see spirits, and I don't. They actually scare me. So I've never seen a spirit like ghostly, if you will, for what most people would call a ghost or whatever. Like that would scare the crap out of me. So I don't want that in my life. And I even found the work doing mediumship at that level of bringing folks through is also an energy I didn't really want to be doing very much. When I did do readings, angelic readings, okay, and we're talking energy, it's way up. And so I never ever said to people, "Oh, I'll bring a loved one through for you or a pet." No. But if someone popped in, I would tell them, "Hey, I'm getting this person, and da da da," and I don't mind that. But I found at that week-long teaching course with James, and bless him too, and respect him, and he was with Lynn Probert from the UK, co-teaching. You couldn't help but bring all these these beings through who are in wherever they are, Barbara, and wanting messages. But nevertheless, what I found is you kind of take that energy into you while you're channeling what they want to say, and most of it doesn't feel divine. Okay, like I could feel their personalities and everything, and so you have to be a certain kind of person to want to commit and do that work. And again, that's not what I'm here for and what I want to do. Anyway, this is fun talking about these stories. Again, just sharing all of this stuff, audience. I believe a lot of people, if not every single person, has the capacity and the capability to experience that which we cannot see, Barbara. And I'm sure you believe that too. So opening up and talking about our experiences here, which a majority of people, I'm wagering, are going to say, "That's cool, and I wish I could do it." I can't tell you how many bereaved parents I've met over the years who desperate to just dream about their child gone. And I'm like, they're probably trying to get in, but you just got to raise your consciousness and be open to it. And so we're here to help people, number one, just get that this stuff is real, and you can experience it to the degree you want to. But I will also say it does take time, and I'm speaking personally here. It has taken time for me to acquire the skills, okay, to trust and experience what I want to. That is, I'll just say for fun, otherworldly. So, Barbara, you went to the symposium in July. Do you want to speak a little bit about that in Barcelona? What it was about? And by the way, I caught some YouTubes on it because Deepak Chopra was there, some of the bigger names, and I don't know, a couple of other big names were there. Anyway, so congrats to you for going. But do you want to share anything about that with the audience to give them an idea of what that was all about?
Well, it was the Science of Consciousness Conference. It was the 31st annual Science of Consciousness Conference.
Mm-hmm.
And it was started 30-some years ago by the University of Arizona, Tucson, by an astrophysicist whose name eludes me at this moment.
Yeah.
They began all those years ago as scientists looking for the science of consciousness. Like, what is consciousness?
Mm-hmm.
And as they studied through the years, I'm sure they all presented all their left brain papers to each other as they started out. And slowly, the meditators, the psychologists, the IT people, slowly, I think naturally, if you're looking for what is the root of what is consciousness, and you're asking the question seriously, even if you're a bunch of left brain scientists, it's inevitable that you're going to get to the answers that say, "Oh, well, you need more of this, and you need more of this, and you need more mysticism. You're really going to understand it." And so by the 31st conference, it's pretty much a hybrid and a mix, but that was the roots of it.
Yeah.
And so I was presenting, and there's two stories here that this is, well, I started channeling in 1987 and have been through all of this, which has been taxing. And, I'm a skeptic. I'm a healthy skeptic, but I knew that I was being guided because of the fruits of the labors of us, following what they're telling us and having our lives just burst open and heal and evolve and grow and thrive. So after all of these years and all of the work that I have done to stand on that stage and present, I talk to dead people.
Yeah.
Much. Well, I've been talking to Einstein.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you also talk to Einstein on a regular basis.
In front of the scientists. And in 2005, I did a book called Imagining Einstein, where he posted the compassion as the fifth fundamental force, and the center of the earth is the source, and it operates like a black hole. And in 2005, I said to him, whatever, I don't know, is this ridiculous? I have no idea if his source could be in the center of the earth and it could operate like, I have to stand up in front of the scientists and say this stuff. But I trusted him. Yeah. Just went forward. So that night on that stage, which was almost to the day, the 70th anniversary of the reading of Einstein's last words in life, on July 9th, 1955, the Russell Einstein Manifesto was read in London. Yeah. And it basically said, world leaders, resolve your conflicts peacefully because no one will survive World War III. So almost to this day, the 70th anniversary, I got to present and when I got to the part where I told the story about, and then I told him, I have to stand on the stage and go with the scientists. Yeah. Well, here you are. Like 3 of them jumped up and pumped their fists and said, we knew it was a black hole. We knew it was a
Oh my God. And now I'm going to just interject very briefly here. I bought your Imagining Einstein book and I finished 4 chapters. It is so formulaic. It is so scientific. I said to you, Barbara, I remember one of our private talks, I said to you, with the greatest respect, I know you were channeling that, right? How could you have written that? It's so hard for me to get through it. Now, I don't want to put anyone off getting the book. And you've written, 6 books now? Is it 6? And a number of them. I listed some of them in the introduction, and we'll have showcased many of them. So go to Amazon, folks, and you can see what Barbara said. I mean, it was like you were a physicist and mathematician writing that book, and probably the others that I haven't even got to. And I was so disappointed in myself that I don't want to say gave up, but it was like my brain couldn't digest it. It was so on overload. And because I'm a perfectionist and I thought I need to understand this perfectly and then remember it. Okay, well, right. So no, maybe I'll go back and visit it again and take those pressures off of myself. So this is not an easy feat. But when you talk about Einstein, and I've heard you channel him on those ones we did together for the piece that you were doing, conducting peace, you don't call it peace circle, but the peace get together. What do you really call them? Peace what?
Oh, they're various things. We have various reasons to get together.
And I was very, very blessed to be part of a number of them. Like, you're channeling people who were physicists, scientists, mathematicians. And that's not necessarily the makeup of your physical brain in this life, is it? You were a musician, for goodness sake. And I remember you saying, if you maybe you wrote this, that you believe when you were called to channel Einstein, it was because of the way your brain worked in composing music. Did you say that?
Well, I think that was my training.
Your training
to get to Einstein.
Yeah. Anyway, we talked about how you started channeling Einstein in our previous interview, and you've got that in your books and other podcast episodes and so on. So if you want to learn more about Barbara and that, let's get back to Barcelona. And they were pumping your fists. So in other words, the scientists, the researchers there, everybody who was there were everybody in their capacity of the empirical world sitting in that audience, but they supported you, did they not? And they're finally, like, they understand and they trust that you're really channeling Einstein and others from the party, right?
I don't think we could speak for everyone, but I could say there was a very large contingent, much larger than I had anticipated.
Really?
Of people who were absolutely right there.
Yeah.
And the ones pumping their fists going, I'm sure they were the ones who had been researching that it was a black hole. And here was this woman who, and I have to admit, in order to get selected, I used AI to come up with some really, collegiate sounding titles. The phenomenology of the blah, blah, blah. I can't even remember what it was.
Hence, you were really channeling Einstein when you wrote the books.
exactly. And so when I got up to present, it's like the phenomenology of non-ordinary reality is measured through the blah, blah, blah. And I said, really, if I would have had my druthers, I would have named it I Talk to Dead People. And I talked to Einstein.
No kidding.
And I think the important part for me for your audience that is that I think skepticism is a beautiful, healthy thing.
Yeah.
I think the truth will overcome the skepticism. That's, I think, the idea behind being skeptical, like a healthy skepticism. The truth will withstand it.
Yeah.
But what you have to have along with it is this willingness to commit to the truth, which is at the root of everything. It's a mystery.
Yeah. You know what? Did you, I don't know, and I'll ask you personally, did you attend Deepak Chopra's presentation or not?
Actually, in my presentation,
Yeah.
was there were 6 of us, and we each had 20 minutes, and it was a topic that was like paranormal and afterlife. And so, and this is what I want to get to too. The other side of it was one of the speakers. Was this young man and all the other, I think there were 5 of us. So all the other 4 presenters were the scientists.
Yeah.
They were doing scientific research. And one young man was doing research on messages left on cell phones from people who have passed on.
Okay.
So
anyway, I caught Deepak speaking about consciousness on a YouTube. And again, I don't know how much was presented on YouTube from any of the presenters. Anyway, the point I want to make is he was saying after his decades and other researchers' decades into understanding consciousness that they still just really don't know enough about it, if anything. And I found that really interesting because it's not, for me, I didn't take it as backtracking all the work he's done. I have like one of his absolute first books he ever wrote from published in early 80s. I have that book. And he was still a cardiologist and just sort of getting into this and hadn't reached the stardom level that he eventually reached. But if he's right and we're still at this whole, sort of unawareness. Sometimes when we talk together, Barb, I don't understand the words I want to say, but about consciousness, we don't even understand what the heck it is. And your books, for audience, anyone interested in going deep into what Barbara, the work she does, channeling the party, channeling Einstein, like go to her site, go to Amazon, just type in Barbara With. You're going to see all your books, and they are amazing. I still haven't got any more, but I do plan to at some point. But I've had an opportunity to talk to you a number of times now. And even when you're channeling, I mean, it's you said it yourself. You came from more of an empirical, sort of point of view study of the channeling you do is quite empirical. Mystical, spiritual, but also very empirical in the sense that it's coming from mathematicians, physicists, and so on. How can it not be? But that work is just a little teaser for the audience. If I recollect again right, Einstein discovered all this stuff, the compassion is the 5th fundamental, when he crossed and then was looking for channels or a channel to do the work you're doing. So I don't know if you're the only channel of Einstein or others in the party were looking for humans who could act as instruments to convey what they had discovered. And to me, it sounds like they're so excited. I get it now. I know how we all exist, where we come from, and all of the stuff you talk about. It's pretty cool. Do you know if there's anyone else that actually channels Einstein?
I think there's been people who channel Einstein. I think what sets all of this work apart is that this was a lifetime process for me that was very much divinely guided, because I just wanted to be a rock star. I just wanted to be, I started writing when I was young. So the training that I went through as a young songwriter, I had no idea that it was setting me up for becoming this channel. And then when I started to do groups with Kim and Teresa in the psychic sorority, and then suddenly they were angels.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's okay. All right, whatever. But that then was the next stage of preparing me.
Yeah.
And then the Party of 12, which in 2001, I published the Party of 12, the Afterlife interviews.
Yeah.
With these 12 famous dead people who
Yeah.
said, this isn't your idea. We've summoned you. And we've been working in Afterlife for War or Peace. Well, it's the 25th anniversary this year.
Yeah.
So I'm going to re-release Party of 12. And have an updated, I'm going to hold a session on Zoom and channel an updated to add to the next edition of it. And
That's amazing.
yeah.
When are you gonna do you know yet when you're gonna do that?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
So
but
it's on your radar. Okay.
But it'll be on my radar, and I'm hoping to at least June is the official 25th anniversary. It came out in June 2001.
Wow. And so you'll sort of be able to see the progress of from where you started. Are you looking? Looking isn't the right word. You're just open to what the messages are going to be 25 years later, right?
Yeah, and I want to have some decided questions to ask of the party now that we're here on the verge of World War III. I mean, that was Einstein's last manifesto. What does he have to say for himself? What does he have to say for us now?
Wow. Okay. If you're doing invitees, put me on the invitation list.
I will.
I got it. I got to be at that one. That is amazing. And so you have been, to be clear though, audience, Barbara, you have been channeling since the 80s, I love how you say you were summoned. And that's another quick point I want to make. I don't want to go down that, avenue of speaking today because I have a couple other things I wanted to get to. But if you are summoned to do purpose work like this in whatever way, when you heed the call, it becomes your life's work. And you've been at this for decades. Of course, I don't want to age you.
That's all right.
I'm teasing. You started in your 20s, right? More or less?
I started writing when I was 12, and then I started channeling probably when I was 30.
So in there, and you've been at this. So I love, again, how you say summoned. And so it's a big piece. So there are many, it's not that you haven't been, doing messages over all of these years, but the anniversary is going to be so cool to ask the questions. And yeah, you could just write a book on that Zoom call. You could. Right?
I know. Especially, I mean, think about all the stuff that came out about JFK. I was just I'm reading Party of 12 again because I want to come up with some good questions.
Yeah.
And I just reread Gianni Versace.
Yeah.
And that was just ever so enlightening again about how the fashion industry, they have these ultra uber skinny, impossible images that they put forth for the American people to impossibly try to become.
Right. Yeah. You'll get the answer, and you'll say, "Vaughn, buy the book," and you'll find out. And I really do want to get that book, though. I haven't got it yet, but I want to get it anyway. Not to go down there. That's going to be fascinating. I'm so happy I found that you were intending to do that, and you will do it. I know that. I want to get back just real quickly because I want to cover two more things before we end this one. So this researcher who is giving his presentation, and he's done work in terms of afterlife communication coming through on a cell phone. So was that work in the audience relatively well received? Is this continuing research? So in your opinion, we're not talking to the guy, so obviously I can't sit here and ask him, are you going to go and do more work? So what's the fascination for them? Did you get that at all? Did you have a chance to understand why there's research being done in this area? What is it they want to prove? Does it have to do with ongoing consciousness? And that basically that's what we are when we leave these physical bodies?
I think all the 4 people who came before me had that intention of somehow doing really hardcore nuts and bolts research, the kind of documentation of the research. And because that plenary session or whatever of the 5 of us together was completely packed and none of the other ones were there. I took it that, and everyone else who addressed the room said, obviously, this is what you're super excited about. Yeah, you have all those scientists giving you the scientific stuff,
Yeah.
but you're looking for this outside the box stuff.
They're really excited that people want proof of afterlife communication in the physical because they want to believe and trust their loved ones haven't completely gone.
Well, I think it was belayed by the fact that it was packed in there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that it's a bit of a quantum leap for the scientists. So it's, even the 4 presentations were sort of methodical and, it wasn't really exciting. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Until I got up there, with my rock and roll and like I talked to dead people and it's a black hole. And then stuff started to swirl. But I think even those scientists or research scientists, whoever they are, who is coming to these conferences, want this. They want to know the nature of consciousness. And what's interesting is that ever since then, even though Nassim Haramein, who is also a physicist who's been working on a unified field, who is a big speaker at the conference, he didn't talk about black holes. He does now.
Really?
Everything I see come through on my algorithms has him talking about, if you think a black hole is chopping through a thing, it's not. It's the root of every. So even if he didn't hear what I said, that we did this work over the course of decades, that I religiously stuck with what Einstein told me, and it turns out to be
Yeah, and for audience that might not understand black hole, in a nutshell, I've had some stuff come through my news feed on science stuff and something to do with it's so massive. And I can't remember if I think even Deepak said something like the Earth sort of represents 3% of the vastness of everything out there. And this is what I'm remembering, but that everything lies within this black hole and dark energy, dark matter. And maybe even consciousness is the black hole. Right? Right?
I'm pretty sure compassion springs from nothing.
Yeah. Like, so that's
everything.
That's what I'm saying. Barbara has decades of talking about this, like you would be composing a grocery list. I remember when you came on the first time and you just talked all about this stuff, and I'm just sitting here going, what? And so I'm just saying we're having a bit of fun with this today, but that's why when you talk about the black hole, people watching or listening to this might be going, what is she talking about? Well, that's because it's all happening. Everything, from what I understand, from even, the stuff that comes through from NASA and that and whatever. And scientists are taking extreme interest as of late, couple years, maybe a little bit longer, about black holes and starting to literally study black holes. And so one thing I really remember you saying on our part 1 was, like people are afraid of the blackness, they're afraid of the darkness, but in actual fact, that is kind of where life begins. Am I right?
Yeah. From the nothing.
From the nothing. So we're not to be afraid. And I think maybe science is catching up to this, studying it. Anyway, we got a little bit, I have to talk a little bit because I promised the audience we would, about proof of afterlife. You put it so beautifully, but proof of afterlife communication happening in physical. So my guess is that technology makes it a whole lot easier now for this communication to actually happen. Right? Where we can literally see it. So that researcher who says, yep, I'm doing research on afterlife communication coming through on the cell phone, that speaks volumes that those in the empirical field are starting to open their minds up to accepting there's a lot that they don't understand yet. So they've come leaps and bounds in thinking about this stuff. So I just want to say, and Barbara, I just want your take on it for the audience, how you would put this. Obviously, you believe and trust that we can have signs in the physical from afterlife. Let's just call it afterlife. What do you want to tell the audience, anybody who's struggling with trusting and believing that these are real signs, okay? What do you want to tell them about that? How they can trust the signs?
I think it's a science experiment.
Okay.
I think it's being able to suspend some judgment,
Mm-hmm.
document,
Okay.
when things start to be so synchronistic
Mm-hmm.
that you can't deny them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we do,
Mhm.
right? Oh no, that's just a coincidence. And because the root of everything is a mystery, which is what Einstein told us right in the beginning. I'm going to tell you right up front, the root of everything is a mystery. So don't think you're ever going to know. And open yourself up to the magic of life, to being more like a child, more whimsical, more willing to believe. You're not going to get rid of your skeptic, but the truth is going to outlive your skepticism. So if you're gonna go through life saying no, 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 it's not, then that's what it's gonna be.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're gonna open up and say, well, hey, I can be a scientist, I can start to study this, I can start to observe, what is the synchronicity? How, let's document it, let's see what it is. And then ultimately, Vaughn, we are responsible for giving our life meaning. That is my responsibility to give my life meaning.
Yeah.
And I am just one person who would rather live in a life that is magical and mystical and mysterious and exciting and up and down and everything than I would not believing, just not believing. So people have to make that decision. And isn't that the sort of the spiritual question of the hour? Why are we here?
Yep.
And what are you going to make of your life? Because you get to choose. You
Yeah.
get to choose your attitudes and your worldviews and how you're going to approach it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And the third big question is what happens when we die. So, I mean, people just want to know that. So, what I'm going to offer to that, and then we're going to round this up because it's been really great with your resources. I'm just going to say, if it's real for you, it's real. You can't convince anybody else what you're experiencing. And I really do believe we can all have similar, if even not sometimes the same experiences from afterlife connection. So dreams, signs, symbols, like weird things happening. Um, but I also think it really is, and this is my piece being evidence of it for my personal experience, is how open you want to be. The other piece is, I was told back in my earlier bereavement, it didn't happen for me because I was already in a spiritual practice for 23 years when my daughter died. So already I was primed and open for this stuff. So I can see for somebody who's not, and then all of a sudden, where's my loved one? Where are they? Whether it's a child, a partner, whatever, where are they? Really want to see them. But, you might not be primed for that type of energy. And visits, dreams, anything, for a while, they can be both painful and beautiful because they can be so real that then you wake up and go, oh my God, but you're not really sleeping in the dream visits. You're kind of, it's happening in a state that you're not really asleep and you're not really fully awake, but you always, always, always remember the visit in detail. Most people who have had an actual dream visitation, astral, they're very, very different. They're not a dream about the person. You recognize that person is really coming to you and saying hi. They're popping in. And my understanding has been over the years, and I believe this to be a truth anyways, is they have to lower their vibration. We have to match, so we have to raise ours. They've got to significantly lower theirs. I was taught this by mediums, to the point it can be really difficult for them to do it in order for you to even have that meet and greet in the astral. So all of those things factor in. And then again, I really believe it just depends on the relationship you're having with the loved one. If it's necessary for you to have that connection, communication that's proving they're still alive, in some way, shape, and form, because really that's all people are looking for. They're looking for proof that their loved one exists in some way, shape, form in a dimension that none of us really truly understand. So I learned a long time ago, years ago, to understand it as vibration. And I used to think about my daughter in the first couple of years, even with the spiritual practice, about her in heaven. And then I can't remember who it was, but somehow I learned to understand heaven was the vibration. And if that's what I choose to call it, she's the vibration. She's a different vibration from me. Hence, I can't see her physically. And your work explains a lot of that about, when things vibrate, like what is a table and what it's all made of and all the molecules and all, you get it deep, deep, deep in that. And the point at which things transform, and basically, audience, why we can see some things and why we can't see other things. I mean, your work covers a lot of that. And so I, like, when I learned to just understand it as vibration, the simplest form for me, she's just a different vibration. But I also have a choice, and audience, you do too, how you choose to see your loved one who's no longer in physical form as you know them. And I'm also beginning to understand that that piece of them will always exist in some form, what you had with them as a relationship. And Barbara, you might want to close this out, what you think about this, so if she's my daughter in this lifetime, and there's still going to be a remnant of that relationship in that, how I see her, how we were together. She hasn't gone off and completely abandoned who she was with me. Hence, when she comes to visit me, that relationship in what it looked like and I experienced in physical form, it still exists somewhere in consciousness, right? It still does, right? Like, really exists. So some people, I think, might think, like, when they're gone, and this might be for people who clean out bedrooms and don't put pictures up or take all the pictures down and just don't exist, like they're gone, they don't exist anymore, right? And I've never done that. I mean, I never kept a bedroom as like the bedroom intact or anything like that. But certainly, what I'm trying to say is I think that we can preserve our memories of who we were together, understanding that that piece will always exist in some form in all of our incarnations. What do you think? Right?
Well, yes, and in the scientific map that Einstein gave us, this is maybe what helps, is that at the root of who you are and the root of who I am, we start as what he calls a compilation of consciousness. So this one particle, that's the Barb particle or the Vaughn particle.
Yeah.
And everything every decision we make, every experience we have, every second that we're in physical form, all of that compiles in our compilation like memories.
Okay.
And so when our body dies, which is on the surface of the earth and the compilation is in the center in that black hole,
Yeah.
that doesn't go away.
Right.
That continues to live on and be experienced. And it's like, as Einstein says, it's like a hologram. And a lot of times you get to be seen or perceived as the best that you were, maybe the best with your daughter was that right before she died. Maybe with my mother, the best of her, she's young, and my father's young, they're dancing. So there's that capacity, but it's the imagination that literally is the place where we communicate with them. And that's why it's so hard, because we think, oh, this is just my imagination. Well, kind of, but what they're doing, what your daughter is doing, is evolving so many other things where she is in afterlife. Yeah. But your interface with her is where you imagine her as your daughter, and you said she has to lower her vibration to get back to that human, a hologram type. But there's another part of her that's quite expansive and
Right.
I all those things.
I am aware. So I just want to, as I said, I wanted to say just a couple minutes on AirTag. So the AirTag rings. It started, I think, I know, not last July on her angel anniversary, which was July 26th, and she called on July 24th. And so to be really quick about this, so the AirTag was ringing, and of course I'm in shock. What's that? What is that? And then she called a week later and again ringing. So of course, here's what I did, and audience, you would do this too. So I Google all the different sounds an AirTag will make. It's none of those sounds. Okay. So as we progressed, and then my sister's like, well, her name's Tristan, and I call her Jane in public, but I guess I'm going public with her name's really Tristan, so we call her Tris. But anyway, so she's like, that's Tris. And so, okay, we all now kind of like you say, you believe, but you don't believe. You believe, but you don't believe. Now that lasted right till Christmas. So she made calls at Christmas, okay, with my son, 2 or 3 calls, again privately. But now it's to the point where I got to catch it and have my husband, okay, you got to hear this. You got to hear this. So now that's happened. So we're at about call number 16 last night. So you know what? I just automatically decided to do what you suggested. Document it. When she calls, what happened? Nothing has to happen. How many, and it always rings 5 to 8 times. But the real kicker for me where it turned fun was a couple weeks ago. She called and I was concerned. So she will either call on an important date, or she will call when something major is happening in the family, or she will call when I'm questioning something about, something about the communication. So I picked up the AirTag. It was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I leave it on my night table now, but I had it in my desk drawer here. And so I was thinking this one day, geez, I wonder how many calls I've missed from her, So I pick up the AirTag. I know I come in the office and I hear the last tiny bit of a ring, and I'm kind of, darn, I think I missed it. So I pick up the AirTag, and she called again when it was in my hand. Right? And so I knock on the door, and my husband's in the bathroom. I said, Tris is calling. And he's like, hi, Tris. So we're at that point now. So what I want to leave the audience just thinking about, again, I'm not here to try and convince anyone. Barbara, you trust this. Remember, I had the writing on my shirt. I sent you that picture of my pajama top, where that was one of the first physical manifestations I had, with ink that had been drawn on my back of my pajama top, which my Apple Pictures identified it as language, and filed the picture as such. So in other words, if you had a PDF document or something, they have a way of filing it as language. I think it's called language, words, whatever. Anyway, so we're at that point where it's true for us. For any doubters out there, I don't care. There've been a couple of people, well, okay, one person in my life that might doubt it, who's got more of an analytical mind, and he shall remain nameless. But, the point I'm being is it's our experience, and there are enough of us that understand, oh, she's calling. It's like I use the AirTag as a phone, but to the researcher's point with an iPhone, I believe that technology now allows those who are trying to get through and have a little bit of fun with this. This is one of the easiest ways they can connect with us is technology. And prior to all of this technology, it would be electrical, lights going on and off, things like that, anything electrical. So that's my take on it. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a mom who's so lucky to get to hear. I don't think it's my mom calling. I think it's my daughter, because she would love all this Apple stuff. And she died before any of the iPhones, as I mentioned to you before we got on the call, Barbara, that she would have loved this Apple stuff. So that's her way, easiest way. And I'm assuming she matches her energy to something that will make that AirTag ring in its own ringtone. It's always the same, but nothing you'll see online about what does my AirTag sound like when. It's none of those things. And it is a consistent ring now. So I literally have an AirTag that's a phone. Isn't that fun?
I would much rather live that way than not.
Yeah. And your work opened me up. I was already open to a lot of this, but literally knowing you, Barbara, working with you a bit, having the reading, really helped me expand to things I needed to learn. So again, for anybody that is interested in what you offer, do you want to just speak briefly to your resources? You've spent so much time with me here today, and I'm very grateful for that. Do you want to just talk about your resources, Barb?
A reading with me it's not like a reading with anybody else. It's goes really deep into your soul.
Yes.
And if it's not that we don't do predictions of the future, we do, but more than anything, it's about activating you and your power and inspiring you to make changes in your life that are going to, first of all, resolve that conflict. Because oddly, when we do that inner work and resolve that conflict, the rest happens naturally.
Yes.
It's like it's the thing that gets us out of the way to let the magic happen naturally. So, but that's the hard work. But I don't know, I'm very humbled to have had this life and this work and been so dedicated and hardworking at it that I think it gives my readings, the congruency of that I practice as I preach.
You're probably the only one I would come to for a reading, seriously.
Oh,
No, and I'm saying that, but one of the reasons I don't rush to them, I've only had the one, but I do want another, is because I feel I'm a bit intimidated by them. I'm going to be honest for me, but audience, don't be scared. And, and that's because, I feel now, but just clarify how they work, because I feel like I should have a list of questions ready, and so and that I think that's great. So, do you prefer people coming to you with a list of questions? And boy, you're going to get the answers, folks. I'll tell you that. So, or is it just sort of like the party has things they need to say to the sitter?
well, it's both. I
Yeah.
think when people come with a list of questions, I'm going to say they generally answer them before they ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they have different questions. And the thing about it is why it's so overwhelming is because you get this download.
Yeah.
And it's downloaded into you, but it's designed to be time released. So as you move forward, and I tell you this, the work happens after the reading's over.
Yeah.
It's like you don't have the reading and now it's done. It's like you have the reading and now you've begun.
Yeah.
And as you learn the things that they're impelling you to do, then you understand more.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can go back and listen to it. Like when you go back and scan through Imagining Einstein, you're going to read it and go, oh, wow, this makes sense when it didn't make sense. And that's how the readings are, is that it's about you gaining control and mastery of your own self and your self-love. And from there, all the magic happens.
Yeah. And also, I would probably wager that readings happen like they are with when I used to do angel channeling. For the person, you deliver what they are ready to hear and all of that. So
Yeah.
they're so exciting. And I tell you, it really was life-changing for me, Barbara. So I will have a link to your website. So if people do want to find out about readings, they can go to your website, and then do you have a tab that says readings, or is there a special link? Okay.
There's above in the menu, it says services and readings. And then you can use a code Einstein40.
Okay.
And that'll get you 40% off.
Okay. Einstein 40. Okay. Perfect. And so folks, and then you do all kinds of other stuff that people can just browse your site, and you're constantly busy and offering this, that, and the other, and it's so amazing. So I just really, really had fun talking about this. And as I tell some guests, sometimes I leave an episode going, geez, I'm not sure what happened, but I know we've probably imparted a lot of really cool information here. And then I go back and edit it and I go, wow, that's good. Oh my God, that was good. So I know this is going to be a great, great episode for people to get intrigued, about information, get curious about their lives, get curious about where we come from, know more, and don't let the empirical stuff, fool you. I'm going to go back to the book and allow myself just to read it because I love what you said. It's a download and it can be activated when we're ready. And so that's how I'm going to approach reading the work. Thank you, Barbara. Is there anything else you want to leave the audience with?
No, just thank you, Vaughn, for having me. I love our conversations. And I just would say that, the smallest work that we do on ourselves is really the most important. I know we throw it off like, yeah, but I'm supposed to be doing this. But no, learning to self-love, that's the greatest thing that we can do for ourselves and the world.
I agree. And then the floodgates just open, man, to your future. So Barbara and I can attest to that. Okay, we're going to close this one off. Thanks again, Barbara.
Thank you.